I'm Edwin Wilson, bringing you the Randolph Big Doc Wilson story. Randolph Wilson is my brother. This is his story. My brother Randolph Wilson and my sister and I were born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Every summer, when school was out, our grandmother who raised us would bring us down to Warrenton, North Carolina, to spend the summer at our grandfather's brother's house. We always had a good time, as there was plenty of space and less clutter of the usual that we were used to. Roads would go miles and miles, be peaceful, in contrast to the people walking shoulder to shoulder that we usually had to deal with. Our grandfather had a moving company in Manhattan. While visiting for the summer, our grandparents went back to New York to handle some personal affairs. They were planning on getting a house down here in North Carolina in the Hex Grove community to be close to my aunt and uncle. While back in New York, my grandmother became ill and had to go to the doctor. My uncle, my brother Randolph, Doc Wilson, went with her to the doctor's office. With him being a larger guy, he would always assist the family and any other relatives and people from the neighborhood as far as chores, carrying groceries or laundry back and forth. We stayed in project buildings 6 or 7 flights. So the doctor released my grandmother saying that she only had indigestion. Mild indigestion. That was causing the discomfort in her chest. So he sent her home. My brother and my uncle went back home with her. My brother then went to the store, got a bottle of Pepto-Bismol, brought it back home for her. She laid down for the evening. Everyone went to sleep that night. The next morning, my brother was awakened by an alarming commotion from my uncle. He was upset and hysterical. Our grandmother had passed away in her sleep. We made arrangements to go to New York to the funeral. My aunt and her daughter spoke with my brother a few days after the funeral and informed him that he had to come back to North Carolina with us. This was in 1987. She was now a legal guardian, so my brother packed one of those long army-type bags and came back to North Carolina with us. We were amused with the way people down here dressed and the way they talked. The pronunciations were hilarious. Every time somebody said Bo or Maine, we just looked at each other. Doc's longtime girlfriend had relatives such as grandparents, aunts, and cousins and uncles that lived in the same community, the Hex Grove community, as Doc's cousins and his legal guardian at the time, which was our aunt. Both families knew each other well, and we all went to church together. In my aunt's house, church was a must. If some choir was rehearsing or there was any type of usher or deacon board meeting, we were in church with our aunt. The church that we attended when we moved down back in '87 was Jordan Chapel Baptist Church. This was also the church that one of my brother's jurors, Mr. Calvin Curtis Jones, attended. We didn't know it back then, but hearsay, rumors, racial prejudice, and being from what they referred to as up north casted a dark cloud on your status and caused a certain prejudged opinion of how people thought of you and how you were used to living. We didn't live with our mom because she had epilepsy, but as I got older, I would hear the rumor that we were out on the street in New York because our mom was a drug addict, which was not true. This was one of the many misconceptions of just people trying to figure out what was going on and why we moved down here. Another reason that my brother Doc stayed back in New York so much was because he helped our mom until she passed away. If she got sick while they were out shopping or doing laundry or doing any type of errands, if he had to, he would almost carry our mom home. After all, he was a big guy. So with my brother being older and male, he of course went out more often to parties, clubs, hung out at the stores or apartment complexes. This is what they did down here. We would have block parties for whole project buildings back in New York. They would have cookouts down here. As he worked during the week, and went to New York on the weekends, my brother would bring 1, 2, sometimes even 3 of his friends from Brooklyn or the Bronx down with him. After all, that's what city people did. They like to visit down south, especially if you are an attractive young man and you become popular with everybody that you meet like he did. The friends that he brought down from New York with him would meet different people, have short flings with females they met until they came back another time with him. Also, with us enjoying the down-home cooking from our great-grandmother and aunt, everything was going okay. With the birth of his first child in '89, Randolph, of course, spent a little more time in New York than he did down here, depending on when he came back in. If it was late or in early morning hours, out of respect, he would not come to our aunt's house where he lived, not to disturb the family. After all, he had many friends and acquaintances throughout Warren, Vance, and the surrounding counties, so he would come the next day. We were not raised to disrespect our elders. That's the characteristic still to today that my brother, sister, and I still have. Nothing out of the ordinary was going on. I got a job the day I turned old enough to work. I was still in high school. When you come down from a northern place, they put you back a grade. So I was working and still in school also. I remember the morning of the day in question in May of 1991 when the school bus passed a little yellow house in Quick City. It was taped off, had a few cops and detectives in the driveway. Not knowing my brother was supposedly connected to this in any way, I paid it no mind, going on about my usual schedule. I went to school and went to work after I got out of school. My aunt was kind of hesitant to inform us of the accusations and charges that were brought against my brother. This was at a time where the same type of hearsay that got my brother all the time that he's serving now was also surrounding the lead detective, Mike Suggs. We would later learn that Detective Suggs had someone approach my brother earlier saying, "I know you're selling drugs and making a lot of money, and if you don't sell for me, I will put you away for the rest of your life." Also, Detective Suggs was discovered by his own sheriff's department to have a quarter key of cocaine at his house, claiming to be training his canine dog with it. Like I said, this was the same type of hearsay and rumors that was forced to put my brother in a leadership position of a supposed drug gang out of New York. Keep in mind, before this situation, out of the 6 co-defendants, my brother was the only one that didn't have a record. Knowing the person that my brother is, we never worried that 21 years later he would be in prison for a crime he didn't commit. With all parties involved, such as DAs, attorneys, judges, detectives, trying to further their careers and get some publicity and pats on their back for locking up a big black northerner, Suggs, along with SBI agent Lacey Pittman and other deputies, packed up and went to the Boston Road in the Bronx to get my brother. You had one co-defendant that shot 2 people that played a major role in the death of the victim, feeding Mike Suggs and Lacey Pittman false information to save his own hide. Wonas Rofe Davis was telling Mike Suggs and Lacey Pittman that Randolph had ordered the victim to be killed. Keep in mind, at the time, Rofe had charges pending where he shot and injured a man in Henderson and a man in Norlana. He was facing murder on top of these assault with a deadly weapon intent to kill charges. So like the coward that he is, he does their job for them by giving them addresses in New York, Philly, D.C., and providing them with nicknames and other info. The paperwork states that my brother was never at the scene of the crime, but Wonas Rofe Davis, in fact, opened the victim's window, reached in and unlocked the door to the residence, and brought a flashlight to shine at the victim's head where he was shot. Paperwork says there was no electricity at the residence at the time. So I concluded that Wonas Rofe Davis never went through that window of the residence, unlocked the door, and shined the flashlight, maybe there would have been no homicide. Woners was cut a deal in exchange for his testimony against my brother, as all the other co-defendants. He only got a charge of second-degree murder, carrying 20 years, of which he only served 9. On the other hand, my brother, Randolph Doc Wilson, was given a first-degree murder charge, a conspiracy to commit murder charge, and a midnight burglary charge. He was going to be made an example of and further these judges, DAs, and detectives' careers. All of the co-defendants were coerced, pressured, and cut deals to testify against my brother. These other co-defendants had assault and drug offenses dropped in exchange for their testimonies. They were threatened to have their kids taken away from them and put in the system if they didn't do what they were told and say what they were told to say. Throughout the trial, my brother's attorney, who today has Alzheimer's, argued about not being prepared, not having time to copy documents that the judge and DA had, and the district attorney even admitted in court transcripts that they had more info than my brother's attorney did. He also complained about not having time to learn who was who, the nicknames of these co-defendants, and the judge simply asked him, "Do you need a few minutes?" You and I both know a few minutes to prepare for the biggest murder trial of a county of this magnitude is not enough. We just heard a portion of the Randolph Big Doc Wilson story, and I'm Edwin Wilson, his little brother. I would like to thank you for listening today, and stay tuned to this station to hear more of this story, or go to www.freerandolphwilson.com to view legal documents, or the Facebook group page Justice for Randolph Wilson to view live statements from the co-defendants that states in their own words that Randolph Doc Wilson is innocent. Thank you.